Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Coach Cody podcast. You may or may not have noticed I did not upload an episode last week. I apologize. I was not feeling well. I had some sort of stomach bug, or it's just my usual shit digestion that tends to kick up when I'm stressed or something. So not only was I not able to record a podcast, but it's almost been about a week since I've been able to hit the gym, and that has not happened since I can't even remember. So it's been a little bit rough mentally and physically for me this week. So hang in there with me, but we're gonna do this podcast. But it's funny because we're in June now, but May was actually Mental Health Awareness Month. And I just wanted to say like a little something, and nothing huge. We're not going to get deep here, but as someone who struggles with anxiety and depression, pretty regularly, number one, I just want you to know that you are not alone. I think more people struggle than we really know, and it's not this. There's nothing that is wrong with you. I think we just don't tend to talk about it enough. And I know we talk about it a lot more than we used to, but I think there's still this urge to keep it under wraps, not talk about it. But speaking of mental health, there's a reason I was talking about that too. So now we're in June, which is Pride Month, and historically, it's a month that's supposed to be for celebrating if you're in the LGBTQ community. But probably, the last few years, but even more so this year, since it is an election year, I have been wincing and bracing myself for this month, because it's definitely the month of, celebration, but it also brings out a lot of people who are loud and opinionated about, our life in general, who we are, and they're not fans. They're not fans of us, and it can be hard sometimes. And I'm usually a person who, I'm like, I know who I am. I know I'm happy, and I'm so grateful to be where I am, and I'm so grateful that I was able to transition, because, man, life was definitely bleak before that. But I'm so much more comfortable in my skin, and I feel less like I'm swimming upstream. But anyways, I'm usually able to brush any sort of trolls or anything off, because I'm pretty comfortable with who I am. And, other people's opinions of you don't matter, unless you allow them to matter. And so I kind of just let it roll off my back. But last month I had this Instagram post that I wouldn't say it went necessarily viral, whatever, but it did get bigger reach to an audience that was not my own. And I created it for trans men specifically. And I was just thinking, hey, maybe they can relate, they'll find this funny, whatever. But instead, Instagram decided to push it out to about 99% of who the video reached was non-followers. So in turn, that brought the biggest amount of trolls that I have ever experienced on the internet in a week. And it was just all night, all day long, where I was just getting comments, and they were not nice comments. And a lot of them particularly had to do with the suicide rates in the trans community. One person asked me when I was going to kill myself because the rates in the community are so high. And people can literally ask this question in a comment knowing the suicide rates are that high. Like, number one, that's disgusting. But two, is it any fucking question of why they're so high if you come on to a trans person's page aware of these statistics and then ask when I'm going to kill myself? How is it a mystery of why the suicide rates are so high? The suicide rates are not high because we just have this inherent want to die. In fact, we want to live. Why the fuck do you think we transitioned? You think it's easy? Fuck no. It costs money. It's painful. It takes time. And it's not easy. And that's not to say that as trans people, we have everything, just we're a victim of everything. It's just like, hey, there's definitely more hurdles in life when you're trans to jump over. There's things that you're constantly going to be thinking about, even little things that a lot of people don't think about is if I'm traveling and I'm in a different state and I get sick, and if I have to go to the hospital, how are those people going to treat me? Are they going to treat me? Like, are they, there's just little things. And just walking around thinking, like, man, if this person knew, particularly, there's a lot of people in my gym I know are conservative. And I think about it a lot of, like, what if they found my social media? What if they knew, they would not come up to me in the gym and ask me what I did for my traps or give me a fist bump or say hello or whatever. They would probably either give me the cold shoulder or who knows what. So to have that, suicide rates being high, having the reminder of all these people basically disagreeing with your existence is a lot. But also as trans people, we've faced a lot of rejection in life. And as humans, we naturally want to be accepted. We want to belong. It's just how we're built. We're tribal people. So a lot of us have faced rejection from either like friends, family, religious communities, discrimination in the workplace, discrimination in the medical and the healthcare system. And those are the things that make it harder to live as a trans person. Those are the things that unfortunately lead to the suicide rates. It's not because of our choice to transition or whatever. Like, we just want to live our lives and we just want to blend in, but for some reason society doesn't want to let us. And then in turn, yeah, it can get in your head. It's a lot to handle sometimes. I try not to think about it, but sometimes with these months, with celebrations, it brings out both sides of things. It's the I'm proud. I remember going to my first Pride and I was terrified to be there because I was worried someone was going to see me. I've come a long way. But I've had to work through many, many years of shame due to the religion I grew up in. I went to Christian school all through my life through high school. First secular school I went to was college. So you can imagine that many years of being told that you're basically who you are is wrong, is a sin. There's a lot to unpack. And that's also, what leads to those high suicide rates or the mental health issues. There's a lot of trauma involved. So basically, for those of you who are trans, I want you to know, you know who you are. And whatever happens this month or whoever says anything, just know that people out there are just miserable. And either they're just mad that you're living your life how you want and they're stuck doing whatever, or they're just super insecure and they got to find a way to make themselves feel better. Just remember who you are, and then that's all you need to know. And you've made it this far, so keep on going. Right? I don't want June to be this month we have to get through. It's weird, but yeah, I've seen a lot of negative posts. I follow a lot of fitness and bodybuilding, and it's not always the most trans friendly space. So take social media breaks if you need as well. Filter things out, mute people or whatever. Protect your own mental health this month, and don't let it rain on your pride parade. All right. And another thing, there's something else that I wanted to address in that sense. It's just, oh yeah, that's right. For those of you, this goes for anyone. Just know that whenever you make a comment on a post, there is a human on the other side of the screen. Whether you're trans or not, it doesn't cost you any more energy or time to be respectful. And sometimes being respectful just means that you keep scrolling past whatever it is you see. Maybe you don't agree with it. Maybe you're feeling like you want to say something mean. You don't have to. It's okay to have different opinions. It's okay to disagree with someone. You can disagree respectfully, but context also matters. If someone's just making a lighthearted post for someone in their own community, it's probably not the best time to be like, when you gotta kill yourself. you're still a woman, all these things. Um, but yeah, be careful. Like if someone is asking for healthy discussion and they're asking you to tell them their opinion, go for it. That is an open invitation. But if someone's just sharing their life, chances are the way to be most respectful as a human is to keep scrolling, and human life should always be respected. Whether you agree with me being trans or not, ask me when I'm going to kill myself is just low, low, like disgusting low. So, bottom feeder, troll, low. Even for trolls, it's low. So, just remember there is always a human on the other side of the screen. Be kind, think before you comment. Okay, let's move on to the actual topic today. Sorry for that long rant. But speaking of mental health, this one, it does have a little bit thrown in there. And I wanted to talk about calorie tracking and does it cause eating disorders? This one is slightly controversial, but let's dive in, shall we? Okay, so does calorie tracking cause eating disorders? In short, it doesn't cause it, no. But it can drive it further if you are already struggling from an eating disorder, or if you've had a past of having struggled with an eating disorder. And I am someone who does have a past of having struggled with an eating disorder, so I do know how it can potentially be more harmful than helpful. But like I said, it's more in the approach and knowing where you're at. So basically, let's just go through the benefits of calorie tracking. We'll kind of loop around and talk about how to avoid the downsides of it. But calorie tracking, it helps bring awareness and education. So it helps you stay aware of what you're actually eating, how it affects your body. So it's a really good tool for learning about nutrition, portion sizes, energy balance, eating the right amount of calories for your goals. And it's really hard to, intuitive eating is another thing that is a pretty popular thing right now, especially for folks who have struggled with eating disorders. I have nothing against intuitive eating, but I would like to say that intuitive eating without first knowing what proper portion sizes look like, pretty rough, right? It's hard to intuitively eat when we have so much food around us. You could argue we used to intuitively eat as humans for years and years. True, but we were eating to survive. We were not surrounded by food. We were not surrounded by delicious food that was literally manufactured to make it so we could not stop eating it. So that is the biggest difference now. You could also argue, hey, I intuitively ate as a child, and that's fine. And yeah, that's real too. I did not count my calories as a child, but I think when we're kids, sometimes there wasn't as much ultra processed food around when I was a kid. There was definitely some. Fast food still existed, but I feel like it wasn't as prevalent, and it wasn't the basically foundation of the diet, because kids are just as susceptible to ultra processed foods these days, and I think that's why childhood obesity, is rising, unfortunately, because it is kind of rising with having more and more food available to us, and we don't need to go down that road right now. Let's go back to intuitive eating, but yeah, so I think that in order to eat intuitively, you need to have tracked your food for a good amount of time first. Or, this isn't the ideal situation, or you draw like a line in the sand and you say, I'm only going to eat minimally processed foods, whole, nutrient dense, minimally processed. So minimally processed would be like chicken breast, for example. Minimally processed. It is processed, but not to the point where it's like, oh my gosh, I can't stop eating this. No one tends to binge on chicken breast, right? So when it comes to ultra processed foods, it's those foods that you pretty much couldn't make at home, right? You don't have the chemicals to do it, you don't have the ingredients to do it, and they are designed to keep you eating. Think Doritos, think cookies, cakes, donuts, all those things that are extremely hard to stop eating once you start eating. So I would say that is the only other way. If you think about, so there's like the Whole30 diet, for example. They don't have you count calories, but they do have a pretty restrictive food list. And because of that, people were allowed to eat when they're hungry. They could eat as much as they wanted. And on this diet, a lot of people would lose weight. So it's amazing what just taking ultra processed foods out of your diet can do, and just eating when you're hungry and eating as much as you want, just not eating. I mean, just eating more of the right foods. And that's not to say that you can't still overeat healthy foods, but it's harder. All right. So in that circumstance, it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to intuitively eat when they're minimally processed foods are not right there staring at you, telling you to eat them. But all right, so another benefit of tracking is that it helps you create a balanced approach. So that's the whole, I don't have to cut out a million, I don't have to cut out any food groups. Like, you don't have to go keto. You can still keep your carbs. You can still keep little treats in there. And you can see how it fits in your diet. So it helps you not to be as restrictive with your food as, some other more restrictive diets might be. It helps you be less obsessed with only sticking to certain foods. Food can become a little bit religious sometimes. And so there's a lot of food tribes out there. Maybe you're keto or paleo or whatever. I like to keep nutrition more agnostic, but just be careful about, obsessing over not eating XYZ. So personally for me, tracking food, that is where it helped me. I did sometimes obsess over things unnecessarily, or, I would completely leave out whole food groups and stuff like that. So it has actually calmed me down and helped me have more balance in my life, at least where I'm at currently. So balance, I feel like it helps with. It also can help you build, a healthier relationship with food, because you aren't cutting out all the foods you love, and you can have some processed food, as long as you're not going ham on it every day still, and you're still tracking it. But yeah, it's that whole like moderation thing. It definitely helps with that. I think the biggest benefit of tracking your food is personal accountability. It makes you answer to your own bullshit for sure. And I think this is the area that tends to trick people into thinking that it's bad for their mental health. Because facing your own shit is not easy. And I use my Fitness Pal, right? So tracking your food, even when you ate off track, it's hard to face. It is not easy, but that doesn't mean it's bad. And I think that's kind of where we have to differentiate. Just because something is hard, just because something makes us feel a certain way, doesn't inherently mean that it's bad. You can feel things, and you can know that, maybe you didn't eat exactly as you would, and still track it. Feel what you need, but just know that tracking that, you're just keeping yourself accountable. You're being honest with yourself, and then you're helping yourself make better decisions moving forward. And you're also going to remember that feeling, and you're not going to want to do that the next time, because you're like, man, I do not want to face my own bullshit again. I mean, we tend to at least do it, I feel like, 10 times before we're like, all right, that's it. Just kidding. I don't know how many times we generally do it, but sometimes we make the same mistake more than once, but that's okay. We are human. But so yeah, I just think that the accountability aspect of it is incredibly helpful, and I would say that's one of the biggest benefits of it. So again, those are the benefits. But if you have a history of disordered eating, and you tend to get obsessed with the numbers, you get obsessed with the counting and the calories, and like you're too afraid to eat anything if you can't track it, that's when you might have to take a step back and be like, okay, this might not be great for my mental health. There's that anxiety and that fear of food, and that's where things are not necessarily okay, right? And there could, when you're first starting out with tracking, there could be a little bit more anxiety around like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to track this because it's new. So a little bit of anxiety does not necessarily mean that it's bad. It's just that it's new to you. It takes some time to transition into figuring things out, how to, dial things in the apps and stuff like that, or figuring out how to hit those macro numbers. But the anxiety that comes from being afraid of food, that's where it gets a little bit more specific, right? Um, Another thing is just you got to know where you are at personally. And I feel like a lot of the times why calorie tracking gets this bad name is because there are people out there that have had their eating disorders, driven more by calorie tracking. But their experience is not everyone's experience. And just because someone had a bad experience does not mean that everyone is going to have a bad experience. There's also a lot of people that have great experiences with calorie tracking and have really changed their lives due to it. So, again, is calorie tracking right for you? That's up to you to decide. But I do think it is very beneficial. I think it's the most straightforward way to really know what you're eating, to keep yourself accountable, and make progress in your fitness journey. So that's about it on that front. I think, speaking of mental health and stuff, I feel like I don't want to downplay also the severity of eating disorders. When you struggle with them, they control your life completely. And having food control your life is just never fun. I remember, skipping out on opportunities, on social stuff, on so many things I felt like I was missing out on because I could not get over, I could not, it controlled me. My disorder controlled me. And I don't think anyone should live like that. And I don't want anyone to think that I don't take this seriously. I think the biggest emphasis is just on awareness of where you are at personally. Even, before you start it, while you're in it, and just moving forward, check in with yourself. Check in with your therapist or your friends or etc. Talk to someone if you are, or your coach. Talk to someone if you are concerned. But just also remember that uncomfortable feelings and things, as like uncomfortable feelings of facing your own bullshit, and having it be inconvenient and having it be uncomfortable at times, and having it be kind of monotonous and just something a little extra that all of us want to do, enter our food into this app after we eat it or while we're eating it or whatever. But that in itself does not mean that it's a bad thing. Sometimes life, you just need to get a little uncomfortable. Sometimes you have to face your own bullshit. Just how it is. That's how you make change moving forward. But yeah, all right. That is it for this episode. Thanks for listening to me ramble through like the first part of this. But I appreciate y'all, and I hopefully will stay well so I can continue doing these consistently each week. But I appreciate you joining in. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, and you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to leave a comment. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever, if you feel so inclined and you're able to leave a rating, I would love that. I appreciate it so much. And, if you have any other feedback or topic suggestions, feel free to DM me on Instagram at Mr. Coach Cody, or you can email me at trainwithcoachcody@gmail.com. All these things will be in the show notes. But I appreciate y'all. Thanks for listening. Be kind to people, even on the internet. Guard yourself if you need this month. And just remember who you are. All right, guys. Peace out.